strategies, then the program will be very successful. In the long run, it is empowering for both. By believing in their capacities, you are reaffirming your own capabilities. If we look at NRLM in a very organic way, so it starts with vulnerability assessment to identify who are the poor, who are the poorest, and this would be done in a participatory manner. The second step would be in motivating the poor to come together to build their own organizations. So, this is the institution building, capacity building phase where we ensure that all poor are part of one network or the other. So, the base unit is the self-help group of women, and then there is a federation of these self-help groups at the village level and a further federation at either block level or below the block level. So, building these institutions, nurturing these institutions is really a very important part of NRLM. The third part will be enabling these institutions to be linked to the mainstream financial institutions, so that the resources required for their livelihoods, resources required for their needs are met in a cost effective manner. The fourth layer in this, the fourth step is promotion of livelihoods for the poor, and whatever strategies are required for that will be pursued. And finally, enabling the poor either directly or through their institutions accessing services, whether it's the PDS, whether it's health, education, accessing the services which are their entitlements. So, this enables them to enjoy a good quality of life. The way in which we have visualized the rolling out of an NRLM, the first and foremost requirement is that state government prepares a perspective plan for the state. So, the difference between earlier approaches and this approach is that we also know that each state has its own specific requirements, and all states are not at the same level. So, the state government, taking advantage of resource agencies, resource organizations it has, first takes stock of who are the poor in their state, what is the situation in their state, what has worked in the state, what has not worked. So, keeping this in mind, and also the core NRLM principles, that poverty eradication through institutions of the poor. So, the state government has a plan of action, has a 7-year plan of action, also says that what it will do in the first year. So, the first and foremost requirement is a state government developing its own action plan, which also means that every district will prepare its action plan. The second basic requirement, second challenge as you may call it, is that the NRLM provides for dedicated support structures at the state, district, block, and even below the block level. So, the requirement for each state is to set up a mission, set up a dedicated structure at the state level, recruit people, train people. So, this is a very, very important requirement, that state government sets up a mission, appoints the chief executive officer, the mission recruits the multidisciplinary specialists who are required at the state level, district level, and below that, and the people who are recruited then have to be provided proper training, They should understand how they should work with the poor, they have to live with the poor, understand what kind of poverty eradication strategies have worked in their state. So, not only recruitment but training of the people who have been recruited is a very important requirement, and the success of this program will depend on how well people have been selected, how well they have been recruited. In order for the state government to build on the work that has already happened, you see, we are not at ground zero. So, different states have done this poverty eradication work in their own way. So, there are good NGOs, there are good government initiatives. So, in areas where nothing has happened, they start from ground zero, but where things have happened, then the state government have to evolve mechanisms of partnerships with government agencies, with NGOs who have done this work on ground, and then see how this can be taken to the next level. So, the support structure, which includes both what the state governments will do by themselves and also what they will do in partnerships, is the next challenge which is there with the states. NRLM would like to start with the problems that the poorest face. Keeping that in mind, we are looking at 4 kinds of livelihoods promotion activities. One is vulnerability reduction, which could comprise of getting them out of debt bondage, providing food security intervention, some support for health issues, helping them to cope with health shocks. So, whatever are issues around uncertainties in poor people's lives, so how to deal with that? So, that comes under the category of vulnerability reduction strategies, and there are some very good practices across the country. So, based on that, the different district level teams would propose these strategies. The second stream is looking at their primary livelihoods. Between 80 to 90% of the livelihoods in the rural areas would be around agriculture, livestock, fisheries, non-timber forest produce. So, we will be doing a very exhaustive value chain analysis of each of these livelihood sector, and we will enhance the knowledge of the SHG members, farmers, youth around these core livelihoods. So, it is doing better what they are already doing. So, it is not new knowledge, not new livelihoods. This we believe that this holds a lot of potential, and particularly in agriculture, because agriculture is extremely critical from not only employment point of view, but from food security point of view. So, we would like to see poor people with very small holdings, making these holdings economically viable, enabling them to build their own food security. So, current food security model is that we have rice or wheat from surplus states, it moves to deficit states. What we would like to do under NRLM is to enable each poor household with access to land build its own food security, and which is eminently possible. So, we will be focusing a lot on the agriculture based livelihoods, because we believe that it has tremendous potential for poverty eradication, employment and in situ food security. Then the third stream is for the younger people. So, those who are educated or even those who are school dropouts would like to work in semi-urban, urban areas. So, we are tying up with the private sector, tying up with training agencies who will assess the demand for trained people in the semi-urban, urban areas and design suitable skilling programs, skill upgradation programs, and pick up youth from the rural areas, provide them the skills and also provide placement for them. This has been tried by the ministry over the last 4 or 5 years and has been extremely successful. The fourth stream is we would like to promote entrepreneurs from among the poor. So, setting up micro enterprises within their village or vicinity of the village is a way by which they get employment and they also provide jobs to others. So, these are the four streams of livelihoods, and they are not mutually exclusive. So, families could have a mix of these, and as they progress also the stress will change from one to the other. Innovations hold the key in terms of livelihoods promotion, in terms of even institution building. So, it is innovations are a means of accelerating our efforts to come out of poverty, reducing the time that is taken, and innovators could be anywhere. And one of the most important things that at the district level, block level, people should be looking out for innovators from within the community. So, the community best practitioners themselves. So, they would have found a way which is more cost effective or which gives better return. So, we are looking at a lot of grassroots innovators, community best practitioners who are then used by the project functionaries, district or block level, as role models, as trainers. So, that is one role which innovations will play. But we are also looking at best practices within the country, best practices by whether it is industry or scientific institutions or developmental organizations, which looks at issues relevant for the poor. It could be issues relating to rural energy, it could be issues relating to drinking water or any other like for instance in agriculture. We are looking at innovations which can reduce the cost of cultivation, innovations which enable agriculture to be resilient to climate change, innovations which help farmers to cope with droughts. So, we look at best practices within the country which are relevant for the poor. So, bringing those best practices to educate, to inspire households in these rural areas will be a very important function, and my expectation is that every functionary should be an innovator or at least should have the eyes to catch innovations, to encourage innovators. So, that I believe will help us a lot and will also create a USP for NRLM, that it's a process which encourages innovations. One of the biggest handicaps for poor people is that they are not connected, they are not linked to the formal financial sector. So, they are in very exploitative relationship with the informal sector. So, NRLM, by building strong institutions of the poor, then facilitates linkage between these self-help groups and their federations with the formal financial sector, with the commercial banks. So, NRLM strategy is first to build strong institutions of poor which demonstrate financial literacy, which demonstrate sound financial management of their internal resources and have a good and transparent accounting system which creates confidence in the formal system that yes, they could lend to these institutions. So, that is on the demand side, building good quality financial institutions of the poor. On the supply side, we would like to work with the banks, with the bank staff to orient them about the potential of the poor, to orient them about the strength of the institutions in terms of financial discipline, in terms of their own preparation of micro investment plans to prioritize their needs. So sensitizing the bank machinery is a very important task, and we believe that financial inclusion holds the key. Since we estimate that about 100,000 rupees per family is required, and 90% of this, 90 to 95% of this has to come from linkage with the formal financial sector. We've also seen that in recent years, banks have also appreciated that lending to the SHGs, lending to the poor women is a good banking practice because the repayment records are high. So what we are looking at is furthering this relationship between the banks and the SHGs. But in many areas we find that bank finances still are not satisfactory. So in those places we are trying to look at alternatives. We are looking at a commercial bank adopting a district, putting together a best team from the bank to work with the district mission units and sensitizing both their staff and also building good practices to enhance the confidence of the managers in the creditworthiness of the SHGs. NRLM will be implemented in a phased manner. The logic for the phasing is that in the guiding principles itself we have said that it's a process where institutions of the poor are built and institutions of the poor take a leadership role in driving the program. So we believe that there is a need for a very small number of blocks. We are expecting about 10% of blocks in a state to be taken up for an intensive approach. And in this phase, which lasts for about 3 years, whatever are the best practices in the country in organizing the poor, in doing capacity building for them, in linking them with financial institutions, promoting their livelihoods, all the best practices of the country would be tried out, and in 3 years we will have heroes from these 10 blocks, 10% blocks. So the community resource persons, people who have made a significant dent in their own poverty. So this social capital of trainers from among the poor would emerge in this first phase of 3 years. And when we move to the remaining blocks, remaining districts of a state, this human resource pool provides the leadership and will be playing a sheet anchor role in taking this forward in the remaining phases. So therefore, we invest a lot in the first phase, put in a lot of efforts, and the people who emerge from this first phase, the poor people themselves, will be driving the program in the remaining phases. So there is a phasing strategy here, and we believe that this will be very effective because the energies of the state mission, district mission can be concentrated in a small number of blocks and villages. NRLM seeks